So, I need to complete the cycle of going through Edify's content. I really do. Because we've gone through a lot of things with the discount Prager U, and, I mean, they're obviously going to be making more videos in the future, but there is one video that I haven't really checked out because it didn't seem really pertinent at the time. The video is called Seeing the World as a Catholic. Now, my guess was that this wasn't going to be much of a charged video, so I guess we'll see if that even pans out. But before we get into that, let's go ahead and take a look at the fan art section real quick. And the one that we have on display here today is one from Stargazer Lay. They said, well, I guess my hand got in the way. I do not remember the specific point in time when I was yelling context repeatedly, but I do remember yelling context in a particular episode. So, thank you very much for the fan art, Stargazer, and if you want your fan art to be shown in a future episode, best way to do so is drop it into the fan art section of the Discord. With that said, let's go ahead and roll the intro. And then take a look at the video. Okay, so like I said, the video is called Seeing the World as a Catholic. I originally did not click this video because I didn't think there was going to be much of worth in it. I still don't think there's going to be much of worth in it, but let's go ahead and see anyway. This is probably going to be the most tame of all the Edify videos that we've seen. Let's take a look.
Here in the United States, we Catholics have been experiencing massive societal change, a shift from one age of history to another. Most of us over the age of 40 remember when Christian values were the basis for much of our culture. Now it's more common to feel that Christian values are under attack.
Which Christian values do you feel are under attack? Usually it's a good idea to actually quantify these things, because otherwise you can just be incredibly vague and people are going to insert their own idea of what they think a Christian value is. For instance, if you claim a Christian value as being pro-LGBTQ because you're all made in the image of God, then that's not something that's really under attack. But if you claim that a Christian value is being anti-LGBTQ, then yeah, that might be under attack. But when you label it under the greater label Christian values, it lets people insert their own story. Let's see if he gets specific.
What happened? These massive changes in our culture have many causes. In the University of Mary's book, From Christendom to Apostolic Mission, my colleagues and I trace many of the ways our culture's overall vision became at odds with our Catholic values.
Wait, is this just an advertisement for your book? Is that all it is? Is this just a book advert?
Because of this, for Catholics today to effectively live our faith in public, we must adapt and move to an approach which has allowed Christians to thrive over the past 2,000 years when Catholics have been in the minority or even persecuted for our faith.
Catholicism is the largest branch of Christendom on its own. Yeah, there might be more different types of, or there might be more Protestants when you group them all together, but in terms of an individual faith, Catholicism is largely the largest of the Christian faiths. If we are going to talk about the different things that the Catholic Church has stood for in the past, you can point in the positive to things like the funding of some of the earliest universities and education, and I would agree with you on that, but you'd also have to accept the negative things like the Crusades, for instance. If you're not willing to accept those, if you're not willing to accept things like the Spanish Inquisition, then I'm sorry, but I'm not going to be accepting the good, because you refuse to accept the bad as well.
One very important element of this apostolic mode of living our faith in public is that we adopt a powerfully Catholic vision of the world and human life.
What does that mean?
So how should Catholics see the world?
Mm-hmm.
We should embrace the truth that Christianity is the most shockingly momentous view of what it means to be human that has ever been seriously believed or pursued.
One, that's vague. That means practically nothing. Two, this is basically saying that, aha, look, my human experience is better because I'm a Catholic. That's basically all it is. This feels like it's not trying to toot its own horn and say that Catholics are better than everybody else, but that when you say a statement like that, I think functionally that's what ends up happening.
The weight of this momentousness is both thrilling and terrifying.
How?
In our Catholic vision, to be a human is to be involved in an extraordinary adventure. The greatest adventure stories ever written are only faint echoes of it, pale shadows of what the lowliest human is in truth undergoing.
Okay.
This drama
That's literally a view held by many people who are secular as well. I don't see how this is uniquely Catholic.
began before we were born and will continue after we die, and each of us has been given a unique role to play. Catholics know that we've been born into an invisible world as well as a visible one. And the invisible world is incomparably more real, more lasting, more beautiful, larger than the visible. Catholics also understand...
Wait, the invisible world is more real and longer lasting? So, okay, if I were to look at this from a secular perspective, then I could agree with the sense that our emotions and our lived experiences, insofar as they exist as memories, is largely intangible and it's therefore infinitely more broad than the actual physical world. I could agree with that. Also, Sweet Dream does a copyright hit, so we're going to hit that away right now. Sorry. But that's as far as I can take that. Again, everything that's been presented so far is incredibly vague, and I want to know... When you say what it means to be a Catholic, but you give me a bunch of very vague pontifications that can also apply to a secular person, I don't know what I'm supposed to get from it. And man, when they say more real, again, if I look at this through a secular lens, a thing that really happened to me happened once. But that thing happens to me an infinite number of times in my memory, making it somehow more real to me as a memory than it was as a singular experience. That's me stretching far away from what the actual speaker has likely intended, but that would be how I would see that from my end. My intent here is to show, at least from what I'm seeing so far, that nothing that he's saying is uniquely Catholic, unless he wants to get so specific that it can only be specifically Catholicism that leads him to these points. But I don't know if I'll be able to do that for everything. Because, as usual, I haven't seen this video yet, so let's see what we got.
That every human has been created for a magnificent destiny that makes the greatest prizes of this world seem like uninteresting nothings. A destiny of such height that the imagination can hardly take it in.
What's the destiny?
Not only are we meant to know good things, happiness, strength, length of existence, but we have been created to experience the unthinkable, to share in the very nature of God.
Oh my God. This is literally, I got to spend time with Daddy, that's what gives me purpose. That's all that is. Okay, so yeah, we did hit on something that, from a secular point of view, is not going to function. But again, this is something that's not uniquely Catholic at the very least. But the idea that, oh my God, we get to share within the nature of God, you need to have a good definition of God for me to work with, for me to even want to actually share in that nature. If you're going to have a very vague version of that too, then that's not going to work very well for me. Now, I do understand that, within the realms of Catholicism, you do have a very finite idea of what God is. So that's not exactly a criticism against the video. That is a criticism against using this argument against various forms of theism, though. So what I want to know is, why should I want to know your God? From a Catholic perspective, what does your God offer me that makes him worth me knowing?
To become divinized. By many orders of magnitude, the most important event in world history was the coming of God himself in human form among us. Okay. He came not only to teach us truth, but also to do battle for us against the powers of darkness, and having conquered them, to give us life again, individually and as the human race.
Something that an infinitely powerful God could have accomplished without a blood sacrifice, but this is, again, not a uniquely Catholic thing.
And we Catholics also see human dignity in a life-altering way. In coming to help and save humanity, God did not just intervene from outside. He conferred on us the high dignity of becoming one of us. He arranged matters so that a human might have the honor of conquering the enemies of humanity.
But God was not human. Again, if you want to say that Jesus was in a human body, sure, but he did not actually have humanity. The idea that even when he died, he was going to be transferring into an eternal form after that point, or being able to come back, these are not human experiences. Not to mention, he lived a life without sin. From the actual perspective of a Christian, or were I still a Christian at this point, I would have to point out that he still did not live the true human experience. Humans do not get to perform miracles. Humans don't get to live without sin. At the end of the day, the closest you could say is that he was a demigod, but certainly not a human.
He then established a society in the midst of a darkened world, a kind of colony of heaven that he inhabits and with which he clothes himself. And he gives to all who follow his lead a share in his own life, along with great responsibilities and notable powers to continue the work of saving and healing the human race.
Okay.
Our great task as Catholics, the whole of our existence here, is to find and embrace our true destiny and to help others to do the same by receiving and embracing the offer of mercy made to us.
Okay, but again, all of those are very, very vague. What is your destiny? You say receiving God's mercy, but the only reason that we even need God's mercy is that he put things up in such a way that we deserve his wrath to begin with. So, I'm not exactly certain why I should give a fuck about his mercy. It's like being in an abusive relationship where somebody's put you in a double bind, and then you feel like you have to apologize for not properly surviving the double bind, but you shouldn't have to apologize for not surviving the double bind correctly, because the abusive double bind was only in the abuser's favor to begin with. Likewise, the way that God engineered things for the human race is that we deserve his wrath. Receiving God's mercy isn't a great thing. Everything was already engineered against us to begin with. Why should I want to serve your variant of a deity that set things up in such a way? Not to mention, again, these vague ideas of what human destiny is, and that uniquely Catholics get to experience it. This just feels like saying that they're better than everyone else, which, I don't know, feels kind of shitty to me.
There are two and only two possible destinations for each human person: to gain the life intended for us as members of a renewed humanity offered to us through Jesus, the God-made man,
Okay.
or to turn obstinately from that life and end as immortal failures. For each person,
What he means to say is, you either get to go to heaven or you get to go to hell. But again, these two ideas have been engineered by the exact same God. These two congruent pathways, or incongruent pathways rather, have been set in front of us by your God. Your God is not leading us down a particular path for our benefit. He's leading us down one for his benefit. Why should I care? And again, what makes us uniquely Catholic? This is nothing different than what I could get from a standard evangelical broadcast, or even a televangelist could get me down this route too. Like, this is just Christianity. None of this is uniquely Catholic.
both are real possibilities, and there is no evading the choice. We must either seize the one or collapse into the other. Catholics inhabit time in the constant recognition that we hover at the edge of eternity. We fire our minds with the lives of the saints, those champions of faith in whom Christ and the new life he brings have been most influential.
I like how one of the saints he shows up there is Mother Teresa, because most people accept just on good faith that Mother Teresa was a good person, because that's just kind of our idea of Mother Teresa, but she was actually a fucking monster that denied people who were literally suffering under her care painkillers. She also happened to be one of the people who just engaged in letting shit tons of people suffer under the conditions in her care. This was not a good person. I'm sorry. Weezall Twitch, thank you very much for redeeming your points for an you fucking monster. But yeah, no, I don't. I know that Mother Teresa gets invoked a lot. I really don't think she should. It's really not a good argument in your favor.
We battle for goodness and truth in order to gain an everlasting kingdom.
I guess the finite kingdom, where your organization happens to shuffle pedophile priests into places like Chile, is not really up for consideration then, right?
In an apostolic age, Catholics must deeply learn and joyfully share this breathtaking, mind-blowing narrative. Too often, Christianity is presented to the mind of the modern believer or seeker as a set of rules to follow, or as a number of unattached doctrinal statements to accept, or as an organization to belong to. When that happens, it can seem like the rules and dogmas get in the way of human happiness. But Christianity is, first of all, a way of seeing. To be apostolic in vision is to realize that Catholics don't see some things differently than others. We see everything differently in the light of the extraordinary drama happening all around us.
Is that why you guys have such a back-asswards way of looking at, conception? I'm sorry. I guess at the very least this explains why it's so hard to get some people who are Catholic to understand why women should have basic rights to abortion, or why birth control is a good thing to have access to. Maybe it's just me, but it seems uniquely hard in certain areas like that to convince a majority of people that these things that are good for people to have are, in fact, good for people to have. To say that Catholics see everything differently instead of trying to focus on the ways in which we are similar, again, puts them apart from everybody. And by putting yourselves apart from everybody, especially the way you described yourself in the beginning of this video, where it seemed very much like you were better than everybody else because of your Catholicism, it's no wonder you get to situations where you feel like you're so persecuted. You guys put yourself on a pedestal here. Now, it was mentioned here earlier that at one point Catholics were actually, very, very persecuted in the United States. And that is fair. That is fair and understandable. But what I'm going to say is this. If you are going to have a superiority complex, which is what this video seems to be doing, where Catholicism is concerned, then you're going to have people who fight against it. I'm sorry.
Let's make a decision. Let's choose to live these truths of our Catholic faith in public and share them with the world. I'm Monsignor James Shea, President of the University of Mary.
Okay, but you didn't actually say anything, and this is just the part where you say, aha, this is me, for Discount Prager U, also known as Edify. But, okay, so, yeah, be Catholic in public. Go ahead, do that. I'm not going to stop you from doing that. I have friends who are Catholic. I have nothing wrong with my friends who happen to be Catholic. But the Catholic Church as an organization, not to mention Edify as an organization, it's just... excuse me, sirs, I have an I'm objectively correct complex. Well, by all means, go back to 2016 YouTube then. I mean, that's pretty much where everything was at that point. But... this feels very much like, come to our side of things, because if you come here, you'll be better than everybody else, and you'll see things differently. You'll see things better. And I just don't like that. But at least one of my predictions was true. This was the least of the Edify videos. There was barely anything actually said here, insofar as something of substance. Everything was like very, very vague platitudes. And it makes it really hard to respond to something like this, because there's just not a lot being communicated here. So, I mean, I guess I was kind of a dick through parts of it, but it's coming from Edify, and I'm kind of okay being a dick to them at this point. But I guess we'll have to see what comes next in the next Edify video when they actually make a new one. That said, though, if you guys enjoyed this for some reason, let me know in the comment section below. Let me know what you think of stuff like this. Again, this is the least of the Edify videos, so sorry this couldn't be any more entertaining than as it is. I don't want to just sit here and make fun of things and then that be that. Unless we're talking about Samir Bhavani. That's just cringe. Are we caught up already? Yep. I mean, there's not that many videos on their channel. We are now caught up on all the Edify videos. There's a handful of other ones that don't communicate ideas that are like, you guys won our giveaway contest. I don't care about looking at those. I really don't. I want something of substance that I can respond to, that I can talk about. And, I mean, I barely got that here. But, I don't know. If you want to support the channel and what I do, there's ways to do so in the description below. As always, insert end of video tagline here. Hey, thank you so much for watching this video. It really means a lot to me. If you want access to behind-the-scenes content for the channel, please consider checking out my Patreon. I do weekly vlogs over there, where I give real-life updates to what's going on behind the scenes on the channel, stuff that you don't really get over here, and even on Twitch. Patreon also helps the channel's stability a whole lot. Without Patreon, I wouldn't be able to do this at all. Especially with the kind of content that I do, neither YouTube nor Twitch are the most stable sources of income. If you are a $20 and up patron, then you will be featured on the ending slides as shown in the beginning of the end credits. If you want to catch the streams where all this content comes from, then consider heading over to Twitch and following. And if you want to continue watching over here on YouTube, maybe consider clicking one of the end screen videos. And once again, I want to thank you so much for spending your time with me over on my channel. I wouldn't be able to do literally anything that I'm doing over here on YouTube without each and every one of you. So, thank you.